Well, an actor's name in lights doesn't mean that he can sit back and relax. Each performance is a new test of an actor's ability, no matter what his previous success. By ability, I don't mean how well he knows the mechanics of his trade. I mean his ability to give a little bit more of himself in portraying the characters he represents. Without the urge to do a little bit more, no actor becomes other than a bit player. And more important, no actor achieves real satisfaction. This is also true of the roles we play in real life. They, too, take a little bit more of each of us if we are to lift ourselves above the level of the ordinary and achieve personal satisfaction. Let's look in on the everyday lives of people in a typical American town, my town, and see what I mean. These are people whose lives have special meaning. They happen to be my neighbors, but you have neighbors just like them. Each contributes something special to the lives of others. Beyond doing their own jobs well, they're all volunteers in service to their community. Have you ever realized that in America we have more volunteers than in any other place on earth? We have volunteer firemen, volunteer nurses, volunteers working on civic committees and in hospitals and countless other jobs. Have you ever thought of what our communities would be like without volunteers? I want you to meet some of them, who are our neighbors. We'll start by looking in at Amy Jenkins' house. There's Amy serving breakfast for her husband and 2 sons. She goes to a lot of work to make this first meal of the day something special. This is her way of expressing her love for them and getting everyone off to a fine start. Yet no one would call Amy extraordinary. 2 days a week, after the boys are off to school and her husband has left, Amy puts on her volunteer uniform and gets ready to go to work. And because of Amy, someone else's day will be a little brighter. Amy drives a car for the Red Cross, and this provides her with a way to help her neighbors. And so many of them need the kind of assistance she's prepared to give. Amy is good for this town, for she gives a little bit more of herself to make the lives of others a little bit better. She's acting, of course, in a traditionally American way. Without neighbor helping neighbor, this nation couldn't have grown and prospered. Throughout the years, this tradition has often meant the difference between life or death. The spirit of it remains a strong part of our national character. Betty Bishop is thankful for this spirit. For 2 weeks ago, she became seriously ill and had to be taken to the hospital in an ambulance. Of course, emergencies happen in every life, but Betty's posed problems that seemed insurmountable. Fortunately, Betty's sister, Helen, was on hand when the ambulance arrived, but she had a job she couldn't afford to give up. Betty's baby daughter was too young to be left alone, and her husband, Don, an Army sergeant, was stationed 3,000 miles away. Help was needed, and needed quickly. In her distress, Helen called Red Cross. One call for help started others that brought more than solace. They brought an end to tears and worry. They brought actual physical assistance. Amy, returning to headquarters to get her next assignment, found one fast when she got Helen's message. Amy alerted others at the chapter, and they quickly saw to it that help for the Bishop's family was on the way. The first call from the chapter went to the home of Debbie Carter, a student on vacation and a Red Cross volunteer. Her studies take up a lot of her time, but she always shows a warm willingness to help her neighbors whenever she's needed. When Debbie heard about Betty Bishop's trouble, she readily agreed, as did other young volunteers, to care for the Bishop's little girl. By the time Mrs. Bishop got to the hospital, other hearts and hands had already reached out to help her. They belonged to her friends and neighbors. More phone calls. This one to Ben Harper started another project in motion. Ben owns and operates this drugstore. He spends long hours in it. Over the years, he's given friendly service to his customers and has still found time to do a little bit more as a Red Cross volunteer. heading the department which helps servicemen, veterans, and their families. Working with others at the chapter, word of the urgent need for Sergeant Bishop to be with his seriously ill wife and baby daughter was relayed to the sergeant's commanding officer. Action was started 3,000 miles away. Like countless others, the Bishop family benefited from the tradition of volunteer service that's unique to our country. Because of the efforts of trained volunteers, the Bishops did not face their crises without help. Maybe your town is bigger than mine, maybe it's smaller. It doesn't make a great difference because people remain the same wherever you find them. People like Amy, Ben, and Debbie live everywhere. You'll even find them in cities as big as mine. Too often, we get the impression that our big communities tend to be impersonal, that people shut themselves up with their own problems and don't look around at their neighbors. But I've discovered that many persons in my city willingly and regularly do a little bit more to make my city's future a finer and safer one. Herb Johnson heads the personnel department of one of our factories. He also heads our Red Cross Disaster Committee. Recently, a disaster took several lives in our town, and a lot of people had to be taken care of in Red Cross shelters. That's why Herb and his committee stress preparedness. Joe Kelly is an electrician. He's a volunteer committeeman like all the rest. Jane Halstead, chairman of volunteers, has had 17 years of Red Cross experience and training. Do you know that out of every 155 Red Cross workers, only one is a career staff employee? All the others volunteer their time and their skills just as these people do. They acquire special knowledge in order to serve you better. Training, preparedness. You know, I had no idea how much and how well volunteers are trained for emergencies. They astonish you by their dedication to their tasks, with the self-discipline they apply to a voluntary assignment. Barney Tripp's job gets him up early every morning, and he works until noon delivering milk. He could take the rest of the day off, but he doesn't. Barney teaches first aid. Many stories you read about people's lives being saved couldn't have been written unless someone had learned to be ready in a first aid course. You can learn to be ready too, through your Red Cross. You can learn many things, a lot of useful things through your Red Cross, from learning to swim to learning to care for the sick and injured. The courses are all free and volunteers teach them. Wendy Black is a registered nurse. She's married and has a family. Yet she volunteers to teach Red Cross home nursing. Many people in my city have used Wendy's instructions at home, doing a little bit more for someone who is bedridden or ill. Others have thanked Ellie Henderson, who teaches young parents about baby care. Ellie has taught hundreds of young parents-to-be how to look after newcomers, how to prepare for that longed-for baby. Then there's Charlie Buck and his young son, Jim. They run that gas station. Charlie works as hard as any man I know, yet he spends 8 hours each month working as a volunteer in the recreation program of one of our hospitals. The little patients in this playroom seldom brood and fret. Volunteers see to that.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Jerry. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Jerry.
Some of the best loved of all the volunteers are those who work in the hospitals. The gray ladies, the volunteer nurses' aides, staff aides, and others. Every day and night you find them working somewhere. They give a heartbeat to institutions like these. They receive no paychecks, but they get loads of satisfaction. People who give a little bit more of themselves cast magic on those around them. They may not know it, but they do. 2 million volunteers serve in the ranks of the Red Cross. The officers and governing boards of the national organization of each chapter are all volunteers. These people do more than just provide assistance, knowledge, and leadership. I think they help to build a better America and a finer world. I do know this. The heartbeat that volunteers give to my city strengthens and brightens the lives of all of us. The Bishop family came to understand this better than I. Betty's situation became critical the day she was admitted to the hospital. Her doctor knew that her life depended on persons whom she didn't know and who didn't know her. She needed blood to save her life, a rare type of blood, a type which the hospital did not have enough of to do the job. A telephone call to the Red Cross got action. The local blood center had the blood the hospital needed, and a motor service driver delivered it. The blood that Betty got, the blood that could save her life, had been given by volunteers and delivered by volunteers. It happens every day. Betty was fighting for her life that first afternoon, and at the same time, thanks to the efforts of Ben Harper and others at the chapter, a Red Cross field director presented the facts of Sergeant Don Bishop's emergency situation to Don's commanding officer. The CO quickly approved Don's emergency leave, and the Red Cross field director helped the sergeant make travel arrangements. Don had seen Betty and found she had passed the critical stage. He and his little girl were together again, and before too long they knew Betty would be back home with them. To whom would the Bishops have turned if it hadn't been for the Red Cross? Nothing tells this story better than its volunteers in action. Teachers, carpenters, businessmen, housewives, old people and young people. A cross-section of America. What does it all add up to? When each of us does a little bit more, we find more satisfaction in living. When 2 million volunteers do a little bit more, we achieve the purposes of the American Red Cross. The story of volunteers and their work is never-ending, for it's a chronicle of our consciences, our communities, and our country. How it continues, how well it succeeds, is up to you and me.